So now we'll move on to the joy practice. There is, on the level 1 page, I think there's 3 documents. There's an article that I wrote for Tricycle magazine, which outlines the practice, the joy practice, in very kind of like informal, low level, easy to understand language. There's also Buddha nature. There's also a booklet that Jamyang composed, which from his teachings that he received from Togden Amtrun and from his practice experience, that goes into much more detail about the practice, the joy practice. So it starts, it's got a very ancient origin, and the yogini, the female practitioner who is most, what am I trying to say? Who is most known, I suppose, for having taught this way is Maha Pritihasha. Maha means great, Priti means joy, Harsha means contentment. So great joy and contentment, that's her name. Now she's named after a tantric deity who was the tantric deity of joy and contentment, who has vanished from the tantric world because the practice was primarily very kind of like basic, often done by women, often done by illiterate people, often done by the poor. So it's, lower caste people in India. So it's not something that had that kind of prestige that a lot of the other tantric deities had. So she's kind of like Mahapritihasha as the deity, not the yogini named after her, has kind of vanished. There's only one mention of her in, as far as we know, that we've found in all of the tantric literature. One mention, and it's in the very early days, in the time of King Rinpoche, who was the 3rd Dharma king of Tibet. And he when they were translating everything into Tibetan, Mahapritihasha is mentioned, just briefly mentioned in a kind of a dictionary of tantric terms and concepts. Anyway, so but the yogini Mahapritihasha, who's a human being who lived in South India around the time of Ashoka, so 250-ish CE, she taught this and spread this very widely, and she was not a high-born person. She was not a nun. She was not privileged. She was a wandering, white robe wearing yogini of the south of India, southeast of India. And she essentially taught the path of joy and ease through one practice, sky gazing. So she was very simple in her approach. And that's kind of the lineage that comes down to us over a very long time, from Togden Amtrun. Okay, now the practice is really simple. Now, if you look at like the sutras around meditating on the immeasurables, or if you look at some Tibetan sources, say Longchenpa's The Great Chariot or something like that, where they're talking about the importance of the 4 immeasurables to Dzogchen. Like Longchenpa makes very clear in that text, The Great Chariot, is going through the whole of the Tibetan, what was existent in Tibet at the time, and mapping out what was important and what was not. And he spends a whole chapter on the 4 immeasurables, doesn't mention Nundro once, and he doesn't mention any particular yidam at all. He mentions a few specific tantras, but he really kind of goes like, the 4 thoughts are super important. Relying on a teacher is super important. The 4 immeasurables are super important. Bodhicitta is super important. Shamatha and Vipassana are super important. And then what we call these 4 Nailjaws are super important. So that's how he maps out the entire 9 yanas of the Nyingmapa system. But when they talk about these sources, like from Shakyamuni or from the Tibetan tradition, when they talk about meditating on joy, love, compassion, or evenness, they talk about having a proper object. And that proper object is usually a sentient being. And that's what they call form-based meditation. So, you know, when you're doing love, you think of a being you love, you dwell in that love, and when that love is stable, then you think of a being you kind of just like, and you try to feel that, and where you summon that love for them. And then you go on to someone who's just a, you know, stranger, don't know them at all, and you feel love for them. And then you go on to an enemy and you feel love for that enemy. And so then your love kind of like becomes boundless. It shines on everyone, right? Likewise with joy, you think of a being who's experienced some great happiness in their life, and you feel the gratefulness for them, the gladness and the joy for them, and you rest with that. And then you think of like maybe a stranger who has some success, and then an enemy who's had something good happen to them, some victory, and you feel that gladness, that joy for even your enemy, right? So that's what we call form-based practice. You think of sentient beings. Now, there's also a tradition of formless practice, and that's what this is. But Togden Amjen has tweaked it so that it starts with a little bit of a kind of a form, little bit of a trigger based on the natural world, really, which is very Dzogchen, by the way. The focus on the natural elements and the natural world is very Dzogchen in the early days. And then once you're feeling some sort of joy, which is not external to you, it's about your experience of joy, then you rest in that state, which is the natural radiance of your fundamental nature, until that is strong and stronger and stronger. And then you go into shamatha, and that deepens the shamatha and reveals your own true nature. It's very simple. So the formless version is to just meditate on the experience of joy. That's kind of like the formless way of doing it, and that's what we're doing here. But we use a little prompt or object at the beginning where you choose something that brings you joy to help you get there, because it's hard for us to get there in this modern world. So that's an innovation, right, of Togden Amtrins. So you choose something that brings you joy. The traditional method, starting from Mahapritihasha, was the sky, but not everyone feels joyful about the sky. I mean, I do, an autumn sky in particular. But you can choose flowers, trees, the wind, the feel of the wind, the sound of the wind. You can, the ocean, sitting and looking at the ocean, the sound of the ocean, sorry, a river, a babbling brook, whatever you want, an open field of wildflowers, whatever, but it should be a natural thing normally. And then when you're feeling quite joyful, you're sort of sitting there in a relaxed posture, or standing there in a relaxed posture, or lying there in a relaxed posture, or walking through that space in a relaxed kind of way, because you can meditate sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. With this one, really sitting and lying down are the best options, but I do it walking. Then you just allow that joy to grow. And it's an illusion of growth. It's actually not growing. What's happening is you're becoming more connected to what is already there, this vast, boundless joy, right? Then you go and sit in your shamatha, and the shamatha, because of the joy, is a lot deeper. And so in a much shorter period of time, shamatha / nepa or nipa or napa, I've heard it said all those ways, depending on where in Tibet people come from. Your meditation, it gets very deep very quick. Like it really deepens very quickly. So we don't talk about the signs of progress, because it's easy when you talk about the signs of progress for people to think they have them. It's not nefarious or anything. They just can be fooled into thinking they have them, right? Because they're actually quite subtle. But there is one very specific sign that we look for. And when that happens, then we know that the next yoga will unfold. And if it doesn't kind of do it kind of naturally, which it usually would, there's a little prompts that we can give, right? So that's really the joy practice in a nutshell. It's very simple, it's very easy, but don't be fooled, because remember, the Buddha said in I think it's called the Metta Sutra, that these meditations on the immeasurables take you through all the jhanas, all the meditative absorptions to total enlightenment. And the Buddha himself said that the thing that first gave him recognition of his natural state, he didn't use those words because those are words that we use in this tradition, But the first time he entered a stable jhana, stable meditative state, was through joy. He was sitting under a tree. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was shady. He felt really restful and at ease and comfortable. And then he felt really great joy. And then he entered into a state of stable meditation. So he himself says that's the first time it happened for him. And then he says, this is the path to awakening. So the Buddha himself is saying, for him, joy is the path to awakening. Okay. So that's the path of joy and ease. Now, in terms of those documents, there's the article, there's the booklet that Jamyang composed, and then there's a little practice instruction guide, which is called the Path of Joy and Ease. Now, it combines joy, meditation, shamatha / nepa, with Guru Yoga. Now, if you're not doing the Guru Yoga pathway, you don't need to add that in, because I know for many people in the West, Guru Yoga is very problematic. They're very wary of it. And we totally get that. We totally understand that. We ourselves are like total devotion bunnies, but we do understand that we're fortunate in that I have met some abusive teachers, both male and female. I'm not going to pretend that I have not. So, but we are fortunate in that our gurus are beyond reproach, just beyond reproach, like above and beyond reproach. We are very fortunate for that has been our gift in this life. But we know that many people have not got that gift, right? So if you think you're convinced that devotion is very, very powerful, which it of course is, and you want to try it, but you don't have a teacher who is alive that you consider your guru. And remember, there's different kinds of teacher. There's a guru who's the object of devotion. There's like a teacher, which is like people like Jamyang and I, and then there are instructors. The Tibetan word for instructor is tupon. And then the word for teacher is gen or genla, and the word for guru is lama. So these are different beings, different types of teacher. And so it's only the guru or the lama who is the object of devotion. And in this Sangha, those gurus are Shakyamuni Buddha himself, of course, Padmasambhava, Yeshe Tsogyal, Garab Dorje, Togden Amtrun, Dudron Rinpoche, or any lama who you feel is your lama, right? This is all cool. But we specifically encourage people to connect with Padmasambhava, because all of the teachings say that he is everyone in the future's guru. Padmasambhava is, and Yeshe Tsogyal because she's not separate from him. They're the same. So we encourage those two, or Shakyamuni Buddha, if you don't have a living teacher, to use as your guru, which means your object of devotion, right? So that's that.